Hi, second grade. So, we're going to get started with our Jan Brett author study. The questions that I want you to be thinking about while we're reading are the critical thinking questions I went over in my last video, and I'm going to read them to you right now. Okay? What is the genre of the book? So that means what kind of book is it? What type? Is it nonfiction? Is it fiction? And then we look into the subgenre. So, is it a fairy tale? Is it a mystery? Is it a folk tale? So, we're going to find out who are the characters and are the characters similar in other Jan Brett books? All right, let's get started. The first Jan Brett book that we're going to be reading is The Tale of the Tiger Slippers. Look at that awesome cover. There's the tiger and there's two slippers on the front. I live in a big house my father built, and I love to bound around the garden. My friends are always curious about one thing, though. Why is there a pair of raggedy slippers in that fancy fountain? They ask. And there's his friends. And you can see that in the fountain there's a little box, and inside there is slippers. And his friends are wondering, why are they in the fountain? This is the story my father tells them. There's his father. When I was a cub, I lived with my mother under the roots of the banyan tree. We were very poor, and I helped as best as I could. So there's the father when he was young. Mother saw how sharp thorns and stones hurt my foot pads when I worked, and she made me thick slippers. These slippers will protect and guide you, she said, and there is room to grow. So that's his mother giving him the slippers. I was looking down at my new slippers when I saw a streak of white in the stream. It was silky clay that could be easily molded into shapes. And there's him getting the clay out of the river. Wonder what he's going to make. I made bricks from the clay and built my mother a pretty house. When the others saw it, they asked, "Could you build me a pretty house from your bricks?" So I did. Years went by, and the slippers seemed to guide my every step. I dug clay and made bricks and built houses, towers, bridges all over the land. Soon I had everything I could want, and I built a grand house for my future bride. So he went from being poor and living in a shack to building his mother this house and building himself this house. And he thinks that the slippers guide his path, just like his mother told him. On my wedding day, a great feast was planned, but when I went to greet my tiger bride, a crocodile poked his snout out of the stream. "Look at those raggedy slippers," he scoffed. "What kind of elegant bridegroom are you with those old slips on your feet?" So the crocodile's making fun of his slippers. I looked down at my dependable slippers. They were dirty and worn from hard work. But at the croc's taunts, I slipped them off and let them float away down the stream. He let his slippers go. I wonder what's going to happen. Faster and faster my slippers sailed in the current until they reached the village dam and stopped it up. The water rose, flooding the banks until an elephant saw the problem and unplugged the castaway slippers and brought them back to me. So his slippers clogged up the river and started a flood. He got them back though. A few months later, the tigress and I were settled in our home when word came that the Rhino King would pass by our village. He needed a place to stay, so we readied our finest room. So a king is going to come stay with him. A stork, seeing the activity, fastened his beady eyes on my slippers. "Scandal," he croaked. "The Lion King would be insulted by his host wearing such raggedy old slippers." I wanted to put my best foot forward for such a lofty guest, and he was about to arrive. I quickly removed my slippers and tossed them over the wall. So the last time that he took his slippers off at his wedding, a flood happened. So I'm wondering, is something bad going to happen next now that he has his slippers off? When the last goat in the great herd of goats felt the thump of my slippers falling from the sky, she bolted. Then the goats scattered, barging into houses, toppling over watermelon carts, sinking dinghies in their panic. The furious goat herd brought back the slippers and demanded payment for the property damage. So his slippers hit a goat and started kind of a stampede. So every time he takes off his slippers, something bad happens. In time, we celebrated the birth of our first tiger cub. Animals came from far and wide with best wishes for our new arrival. The mongoose wished him playfulness. The peacock wished him beauty. The rhino for strength and the elephant for wisdom. The monkey, though, added, "I wish the baby cub's father would never wear such junky old slippers again." The monkey had a good point. I tried again to lose the old slippers, but they always came back to me. Finally, I sent them by air to my old uncle who lived in a distant village. When my uncle saw the frayed slippers, worn out by hard work and sewn by his sister, he wept with pride. He packed a few things and set off to see us. So he couldn't ever get rid of the slippers. They kept coming back to him. So he sent the slippers to his uncle. His uncle was proud of them because as you can see, they're all worn and tore, and he knows that the tiger who wore them worked hard. So he was proud of that. Uncle Ollie arrived carrying a gift. Inside were the slippers. I know you will always want to remember how far you've come and the good work you've done. When you see these slippers, he said, how they show the years, he smiled. The next morning when I was in the garden with my son, I am back from where I started, I said. What am I going to do with these old slippers? My cub had the answer. Why not build the slippers a special house of their own? They can be seen and remembered for their place in your life, and you can wear magnificent new ones. So the little cub came up with an idea. Why don't you put them somewhere where everyone can honor them and you can see them whenever you want? So I did. From that day on, I look forward to the future, dreaming of new adventures, and once in a while I smile fondly at the old ragged slippers. So there he is in new slippers, and his old slippers are in a place of honor in the fountain. All right, guys. So let's go back to our questions. So I want you to be thinking about, what is the genre of this book? So this book has talking animals, and it has a moral. That means a lesson that the author wants us to learn. So that is a folk tale. And the lesson that Jan Brett is trying to teach us in this story is that you shouldn't forget where you come from. So the tiger, he tried to get rid of the slippers because they were ragged, but they were a reminder of where he started and all his hard work. Who are the characters? So we know that the main character in this story was the tiger and his son. And are the characters similar in other Jan Brett books? So that's something that I want you to think about. So think about the Jan Brett books that we've read before and keep this question in mind when you listen to other Jan Brett books. All right, guys. Thank you for sharing that story with me.